Speaking of horrible people, let's tune in to Fox News and their response to the terror attacks in New Zealand, and good for them for at the very least. Now they reported this as at two mosques, and it was a coordinated shootings, but wasn't it one person? Maybe this is when the early reports. But here's Fox talking about the New Zealand mosque attack.
Reporting we're getting out of New Zealand that he wants to stand trial, and there's only one reason for that. He wants to make sure his views get expressed publicly. How sick is that?
Well, Bill, you're absolutely right. Normally, these types of shootings that we've seen in the United States, the shooter takes their life within 5 to 10 minutes of the activity. So this individual is sick. He posted these rantings online beforehand. And also, to take this military action, that's really what this is. You go and you get this military-style weapon, and you go into a mosque where people are praying, unarmed, and just to slaughter them. It becomes such a question of insanity that someone would want to do this. But, the question that has also been circulating whether or not this was an attack that was based upon religion or based upon immigration. The New Zealand community has really been kind of struggling a little bit over the time in terms of how to deal with the immigrants. There was a law passed in 2017 that restricted the ability of foreigners to buy land within New Zealand because the housing prices were being inflated, and citizens of New Zealand were feeling like they were being forced out. That could have played into, so we don't know if necessarily the motivation was against immigrants or against Muslims specifically.
This is just bizarre to me. Maybe they're just looking for stuff to talk about, but the idea that these white supremacists have such a specific narrow set of hatred, they hate people who are not like them. And so they're not splitting hairs here in that manner. It is hatred of the other. It is in the air, folks, amongst the white world in particular, that societies that are supposed to be more multicultural are those people who are afraid of somehow the dilution of white culture. They promote these things, and I can't remember in what context, but there is obviously a difference between a Donald Trump and the guy who pulls the weapon from the back of his car in New Zealand and goes in and shoots up. And apparently there were two other guys. It's unclear whether they were involved, but apparently they had weapons, which is why that first report may have seen it as coordinated attacks. But there's a difference, but they're on a spectrum, and it's very hard to get to the shooter without first laying the groundwork that is being laid by those people who don't nearly go as far as the shooter, not just in terms of actions, but maybe they don't go quite as far as in terms of rhetoric. He releases a manifesto in the form of a question answer. Here is one of his questions. Are you a supporter of Donald Trump? As a symbol of renewed white identity and common purpose? Sure. As a policymaker and leader? Dear God, no. So sort of fascinating, right? Like,
well, that's what Matt said in the beginning, not to interject, but Matt said before we went on air, is like, it's in many ways how we perceive, like when we talk about it, how obviously there's the policy areas, but there's also just the cultural representation of overt white supremacy in the White House. Yeah, he gets it.
Right. He may say like, yeah, no, I get he's incompetent. I don't have to support him for that. But we've got one of our own in the White House who is, within the context of where society is today, this is very helpful for us. He's pushing the envelope, and that's good from the perspective of a white nationalist, a white supremacist. That's what they want. That's helpful. And in the same way that we talk about, Donald Trump pushing the envelope, as it were, for white supremacy and white nationalism in the context in which he does, he's asked himself these questions too. From where did you receive and research and develop your beliefs? And he goes, the internet, of course. You will not find the truth anywhere else. I mean, maybe some of this is tongue-in-cheek.
Yeah, I think some of this is tongue-in-cheek because he, in another part of the manifesto, clearly cites Breivik as his main inspiration. I think this Candace Owens thing might be like a little bit, but Candace Owens' reaction is interesting.
Yeah. So this guy, like I say, has a manifesto where he asks himself questions and answers it. We don't know. A lot of what these guys do is sort of, somewhat ironic in the way that they present on online, that they attempt to that they are trolls in many respects. So when he's asked himself, is there a particular person that radicalized you the most? He says, yes, the person that influenced me above all was Candace Owens. Now, he may or may not, that may or may not be a legitimate answer on some level. He may see in his twisted mind like, oh, this is going to be good. This will alienate her, or she'll become problematic, and we can get a non-white person out of... Look, I don't know that he's sincere about saying that Candace Owens, either Candace Owens did because, she has been quite explicit in talking about, if France wants to build an army to defend itself against anything, it ought to be declining birth rate of its own people. I mean, this sort of all signs indicate that it would be a Muslim majority country in 40 years. Maybe she has maybe he's being sincere. She goes on at one point to say on Twitter, remind Sadiq Khan that according to that's the mayor of London, that according to the birth rate, Europe will fall and become a Muslim majority continent by 2050. There's never been a Muslim majority country where Sharia law was not implemented. I don't even know what, but when we're forced to save you guys again, we'll forgive the balloon. I mean, Candace Owens says we have 50 million Muslims in Europe. These are signs that Allah will grant Islam a victory in Europe. She's quoting Muammar Gaddafi in 1975. Muammar Gaddafi is obviously dead. we killed him.
But she says a Trump balloon won't save the UK. Well, the question is, what will then, Candace?
Right, exactly. I don't understand. She's her response to the protests against Donald Trump is to talk about all the Muslims that are invading Europe. So maybe the guy who went and just killed 49 Muslims was genuinely inspired by Candace Owens and her writing on Muslims.
He did cite the birth rate stuff in his manifesto.
I mean, maybe he legitimately was. Or maybe he just feels that she shouldn't be in the white supremacy, perceives her to be in the white supremacy movement and just wanted to sort of cause her grief, right? But why would either answer does not put Candace Owens in a context that she should be very proud about. One context is that he literally took her words about Muslims to heart and was genuinely inspired. Or the other reason why he does it, because remember, this guy's obviously fairly deliberate with what he's doing here. He's not just picking random names out of a hat. He could be doing it because he wishes her ill will. And why would he wish her ill will? Well, he's a white supremacist. Maybe he wishes her ill will because she's black. But there are a lot of other black people that he might wish ill will to, probably some that are certainly less aligned, who are not out there saying things like about this with Muslims. Well, maybe he wants her out of the movement that she's in because it contaminates the movement. This is the generous view as to why he would mention her in this. And so he wants to cause her problems, and this he knows will be problematic, to credit her with being, and to get her out. To get her out of what? What is she in now that he feels that she's tainting? This is the generous perspective.
Super generous.
So here is Candace Owens trying to defend herself today, and her response to, I guess...
the tweet was deleted.
a tweet that indicated, that she had been
She was
mentioned
in the
in there.
manifesto, yeah.
Yeah. LOL, she writes, laughing very hard. Fact.
Good way to start it.
I've never created any content espousing my views on the Second Amendment or Islam. Well,
Well,
we
it's
just
also
read
first not
three tweets that went out to, how many followers does she have?
Also, what is this?
How many followers
Second
does she have?
Amendment is
100,000, 200,000?
Maybe.
How many?
She has loading here. She's got 1.13 million followers.
So maybe 1.13 million followers who saw those tweets about Muslims. Maybe that is content, but she never says, I've never created content espousing my views on the Second Amendment or Islam. The Islam is true. It's obviously false, rather. We've read those. The left is pretending I inspired a mosque massacre in New Zealand as if the internet doesn't work in New Zealand. I've never been in the same locale as Candace Owens, I think, in my life. Apparently, she doesn't realize in New Zealand that there's an internet. Because I believe Black America can do it without government handouts is the reachiest reach of all reaches. LOL.
Very funny.
It's super funny. Of course, the left is not pretending that that she inspired the mosque massacre. If anybody's pretending, it is the mosque massacrer. And maybe he's pretending, maybe he's not. But the left isn't pretending. The left is just reading the guy's manifesto. And you know who else is reading the guy's manifesto? The right. Everybody's reading the manifesto. It says the exact same word regardless of your political ideology. So this is Candace Owens doing her best to deflect. Now, there's two options you have when you're Candace Owens. I regret that my name was in this guy's manifesto. I have nothing to do with this. I find it abhorrent. I find violence. I find violence against immigrants. I find violence against people because of their religion horrible. It is not my fault I am in his, a lunatic can't be, I can't be held responsible for a lunatic who cites me, but it's disgusting. So instead, her response is to this is hilarious.
Look at those crazy lefties.
Look at those crazy lefties reading something and then talking about what the fact is. And the fact is, she was cited as his inspiration by him. That's a fact. And she should come up with you would think that the millions of dollars that they have to deal with the public relations, which is basically their job in the TPUSA, you can come up with somebody who has a better response than that. It's pretty gross. 49 people were slaughtered by a man who said, you are the inspiration. Take a couple of minutes. Think about what you're going to say. Really,
It's disgusting.